Hey everybody, it's GauntletX, and today I'll be playing the July 2023 Qualifier Play-In Best of One event. In this event, we'll be competing in the Lord of the Rings Best of One Sealed and attempting to get 6 wins before 2 losses. If we succeed, we'll gain entry into the Qualifier Weekend coming up next week, where we can compete in a high-stakes event with a grand prize of qualifying for the next Arena Championship. You can enter this event with 4,000 gems, 20,000 gold, or 20 play-in points. And today I'll be entering with play-in points, so no matter what happens, I'll be turning some play-in points into some gems that I can use in any events. Without further ado, let's bust open our packs and see what we get to play with today. Alright, well, looks like some pretty sweet rares here, particularly the Witch King of Angmar. This card's absolutely busted. A 5/3 flyer for 5 that can give itself indestructibility by discarding a card is already sick, and it makes it so if your opponent's creatures ever deal combat damage to you, your opponent has to sacrifice one of their creatures, which is pretty nuts. You also get that Ring Tempts You value when that happened. This card is just super hard to beat and an incredibly powerful card, so we're going to be trying very hard to be playing black. If we're already playing black, we can consider Shadow of the Enemy. Although this card is much worse, it's an incredibly slow card that's not going to do anything until very late in the game, even in Sealed, because you need your opponent's graveyard to be full of creatures, which isn't going to happen until some very late turns, so not super excited about that. Probably won't run it even if I'm playing black. But then there's also the Palantir of Orthanc, which is a nice card, especially in Sealed, since Sealed is a little bit slower. This is going to put your opponent in a position where eventually they have to just let you scry 2 and draw a card every turn, because otherwise this sits there and keeps getting influence counters, and then milling you equal to the number of influence counters on it. And for every non-land card you're milling, you're damaging your opponent equal to the mana value of that card. So if you play this early, if you play this turn 3, and it sits there for just 3 turns, your opponent has to consider that if they let it mill you, you get to mill 3 or 4 cards. And if you hit like a 3-drop, a 4-drop, and a 1-drop, they're just taking like 8 damage out of nowhere. So Palantir is a pretty powerful card draw engine later in the game that can spit out a lot of early damage as well. We've also got Glamdring, which seems like a fine equipment if you have a ton of instants and sorceries, because then this can be a large first striking equipment thing. Not that exciting though, because it is a bit narrow. There is a Smeagol Helpful Guide, which will be good if we're black-green, because the Ring Tempting You is just already a pretty inherently valuable effect, so being able to do that in the end step is nice. And if you have any other Ring Tempts You cards, then you can a little more consistently get the mana ramp off this card where you're milling your opponent, stealing their lands to use against them. And then Horn of the Mark is a fine little value play. I don't love this. I pretty much never draft it, but I think if I have it in my sealed pool, probably does go into any deck with a decent amount of creatures. The idea is that you attack with 2 creatures, and then you get to dig 5 cards deep, reveal another creature from your deck, put it into your hand. So a good card draw engine if you're in a position where you can be attacking every turn with 2 creatures. So it isn't very good at quadrant theory, where it's not going to be good when you're behind because you just can't be attacking, you gotta hold up blockers, and it's not going to be good in decks that have a lower creature count. But if you're a deck that's attacking more often than not, and you have a good creature count, it should be a pretty decent value play. So not a bad sealed pool at all. We've got one incredible bomb rare, some more sweet cards like that Palantir and stuff like that, so I'm pretty excited about this sealed pool at first glance, but we definitely need to check out our commons and uncommons, and I like to start with our colorless cards and our multicolored cards, see what amount of mana fixing we have as well as what could fit into any deck, and then see if there's anything pushing us in a specific direction. So for mana fixing, we have Shire Scarecrow, Wizard's Rockets, Mirror of Galadriel's an okay card draw engine if you've got nothing else in the deck, but since we have the Palantir of Orthanc, I highly doubt we'll be playing the Mirror, because we're just going to run this Palantir in whatever we're playing. When it comes to multicolored cards, we've got Strider in red-green. That's probably not the most likely, because it's going to be very hard for us not to want to just play black. So the multicolored cards we're interested in are the Smeagol we already saw, and the 2 copies of the Mouth of Sauron. This is a pretty great card. 5 mana for a 3/4, plus amass an orc army. And that army is going to be equal to the number of instants and sorceries in either player's graveyard, whoever you choose to mill. So in draft, you can build a deck that's almost all instants and sorceries, and then mill yourself with this and get a really ridiculous orc army. I have killed somebody in one swing with a 2020 orc army off this card before. That was fantastic. Not really something you can do in sealed. In sealed, you're probably just milling your opponent and getting a 4-4 or a 5-5 or something, but that's still a really good deal later in the game. And you don't have to wait on this card. Sometimes your opponent's beating you down, so you have to just run this out and mill them right off the bat. In which case, 5 mana for a 3-4 and a 2-2 or something like that on average is still pretty dang good at cluttering up the board and stopping your opponent's aggro. So I definitely like having double Mouth of Sauron, and that makes me interested in playing blue-black. Ring Sight is a card I would almost never play, because I just don't think tutor effects are that strong and limited where you're searching your library for something. And this is a really narrow tutor. You have to have a creature on board to cast it. The restriction of having to have a legendary on board doesn't matter that much, since the ring tempts you when you play it, so you can make any one of your creatures a legendary ring bearer. But the fact that you have to have a creature on board to cast it in the first place, and you can only search for a card that matches colors with your creature, does make it pretty weak. I might still want to run it in this deck though, because if we have a good amount of black creatures, a good amount of amassing orc armies, that'll give us more black creatures, and then this could just be 3 mana, search our library for the Witch King of Angmar, put it in our hand, which would be worth it because of just how insanely powerful this is. Again, most sealed decks, I wouldn't really care or consider running it, but when we've got the Witch King in the sealed pool, if we also have a really high count of black creatures, this might be a perfectly playable card. So if we go blue-black, that's 2 Mouth of Sauron and a Ring Sight in that direction, so we will definitely keep that in mind. So let's check our individual colors now, and I do really like our black rares, but we're still just going to do it in order, white to green, so we can see every single color, make sure we at least eyeball all of our colors and make sure we're not missing anything super powerful. White looks pretty bad. I mean, there's nothing horrible in white individually. Like, there's some cards I wouldn't want to play preferably, like Soldier the Grey Host. The Cavaliers are pretty filler, stuff like that, but we just don't have any good non-creature cards. You Cannot Pass is really narrow, even if you always have a legendary creature on board. Only destroying a blocking or blocked creature is just not that great, because it's not going to help you against any evasive threats like flyers and ring bearers, and it's not going to help you against creatures sitting on the board with good abilities like Rosy Cotton of South Lane. It's a really narrow removal spell, even in Magical Christmas Land, where every creature in your whole deck is legendary. And it's even worse than that, because not every creature in your deck is always going to be legendary, so not really into my non-creature spells in white. We basically have none if I don't play You Cannot Pass. And there's nothing incredible going on in the creatures. I do like Rosy Cotton a lot, I like Samways a lot, but everything else is kind of filler. Protector of Gondor is pretty good, Eagles is solid, Reapers are solid, but just 2 really good white creatures, some filler, some bad spells. Nothing great in white. Checking out our blue now. Does not look fantastic. The creatures are bad. 2 Captain of Umbar. These are incredibly filler cards. The non-creatures are pretty good though. If black has a really good just collection of creatures, blue-black could be where to go with the Mouth of Saurons and the Ring Sight to grab the Witch King, because we do have some great counter spells. We have 2 Glorious Gale, a Saruman's Trickery here. We've got the bounce spell of the Soothing of Smeagol. We've got a great combat trick with Deceive the Messenger, and some real big late game card draw between Arwen's Gift and Lorien Revealed. So great spells in blue, but like no creatures, just really filler captains. So depends on if our second color has some great creatures, but the spells in blue are actually pretty good. All right, and I'm liking the look of black. I'm going to be totally honest, this looks really good to me. Solid creature count, most of them are quite good, and some great non-creature spells as well. So for creatures, we have Haunt the Dead Marshes, Easterling Vanguard, Nazgul, and Uruk-hai Berserker are great value creatures because the ring tempts you right when they hit the board. We've got March from the Blackgate adding to that creature count, making all of our armies much scarier since they can just snowball throughout the game and get bigger and bigger. We've got a Troll of Khazad-dûm at the top end, which I like a lot. Swamp Cycler, and a big super hard to block finisher. Mirkwood Bats is pretty filler, but overall, every other creature I listed I think is incredible, especially the Witch King of Angmar. So really good stuff out of the creatures in black, including March from the Blackgate in that creature count. And the great non-creature spells we have are Claim the Precious for fantastic removal, Lash of the Balrog for removal that is still quite good, and Shalob's Ambush for a fantastic combat trick. +1/+2 Death Touch means you're going to kill anything in combat when you give your creature the +1/+2 Death Touch, and often +2 Toughness is enough to make a combat favorable to where you get to keep your creature and kill theirs. So this plays really well with those stats, plus the food token generation. Just stacks up a good amount of value. Then the fine combat trick of Orcish Medicine. The two cards I would probably prefer not to play are the Morgul Knife Wound and the Shadow of the Enemy, again, just because of the kind of narrowness of them. Alright, moving on to red, we have some fierce competition for blue here, because there is some really good stuff going on here for a potential black-red deck. First off, 2 Grishnak, Brash Instigator to go with any other amass cards is very, very strong. Being able to get 3 power and toughness worth of stats for your 3 mana is solid when you're curving out, and you get to do that while stealing an opponent's blocker to slap them with it for a turn. And we have 1 way to sacrifice an opposing creature in black, and 1 way to sacrifice a creature in red with this improvised club. So it's possible we get that magical Christmas land where we steal our opponent's biggest creature, hit them with it, and then sacrifice it to cast an improvised club or a Lash of the Balrog. So double Grishnak, huge exciting reason to be in red. Double Warbeast of Gorgoroth is great in any deck with a good amount of amass, because then if you get your army to the point where it's a 4/4, if you've got a Warbeast on the board and your army dies, it just immediately replaces itself with a 2/2 army. Then if the Warbeast dies, that army amasses again. It's really, really good card at the top end. We've got some other great amass cards like Foray of Orcs that amasses a little bit and shoots an opposing creature. The Book of Mizarble for more amass as well as a big menace swing. Some great removal with Smite the Deathless, Ranger's Firebrand. Decent removal with Break into the Fellowship. A lot of powerful stuff going on in red for sure. We definitely want to take a look at that. Last but maybe not least, we'll check out our green. Green looks very standard. It has enough cards that if I really enjoyed green and I really wanted to play green, I could. It's got a decent quantity of cards, but no removal here, just a few combat tricks. No particularly great cards really pushing me into the color. Nothing super memorable about our green, outside of the fact that we could play Smeagol if we play green. So I don't think I'm going to be playing around with that. So the 2 decks I really want to look at are blue-black and blue-red. And playing blue-black and red is a possibility, but I'm not a player that likes to splash around too much. I find that the downsides of being stuck on mana are pretty heavy. If you've got strong enough cards in just 2 colors to make a more consistent build, I much prefer to do that. And I think that our blue and our red are both powerful enough to pair with black individually to just make a consistent 2-color build without having to throw in a Scarecrow, Wizards, Rockets type cards. So me personally, I'm just going to make a 2-color deck here. I know a lot of players would go for the full Grixis. I don't think that's necessarily wrong, but I know that the kind of player I am, the decks that I prefer to run, I will have a much better time narrowing it down to 2 colors here. And the cards are certainly powerful enough to do that. So let's drop our Captain of Umbars and our Bewitching Leechcraft. And our Bewitching Leechcrafts as our weakest creatures and our weakest non-creatures. That's going to be 4 cards cut immediately. I need to get this creature sort out of here so that the deck builder doesn't lag out. We got to throw our Palantir of Orthanc into here. Actually should consider the Horn of the Mark, so I'll put it in for now. But we also need to put in those multicolored cards, the Mouth of Sauron's and the Ring Sight, since we are blue-black right now. And that gives us the ability to cut 4 more cards. So we still have 4 cards to cut here. We've got a lot of strong 4 or 5 mana things to do. I think I'm cool with leaving 17 lands plus a land cycler. Definitely not loving the look of Horn of the Mark here. We can have 2 creatures on the board a decent amount of the time, but our creature count of cards we could actually draw off of this are pretty low. I guess we dig 5 cards deep, which is pretty far, but I just really don't like how narrow it is, only helping in positions where we're already in a solid enough spot to be attacking with 2 creatures. I also don't love the knife wound, but I am kind of low on removal. Don't think I really want combat tricks that bad, like Dreadful as the Storm. 3 mana for the combat trick, that's just a lot of mana. Still considering Ring Sight as a cut. But pretty much all of our creatures, literally all of our creatures are black, so it'll always be able to pick up the Witch King. I should probably run it then. And then Shadow of the Enemy is just dreadfully slow. I guess I have 2 land cyclers here, so I definitely could cut 1 land if I want to. That does seem reasonable. We put Lorien Revealed over here by the Troll of Khazad-dûm. It's kind of like we have access to 19 different cards that can find a mana for us. I think that seems right to me. We probably want to cut 3 of these cards and a land, or 4 of these. I think those are the 2 options. We've got some other cards I'm not in love with, like Soothing a Smeagol. Just fine. Orcish Medicine's just fine. Nothing just abysmally bad. Alright, let's cut Shadow of the Enemy. Let's cut the Horn and the Combat Trick. I'd rather cut a land than a Knife Wound. How many removal spells do I have without the Knife Wound? I have 3 counter spells. Acclaim the Precious and a Lash the Balrog, plus Ambush gives anything Death Touch. I feel like that's plenty. I think I'd rather just get rid of the Knife Wound than the Ring Sight. Or rather get rid of the Knife Wound than a land there even. Because Lorien Revealed and Troll of Khazad-dûm are both super powerful cards to actually resolve, so we kind of don't want to land cycle them unless it's a last resort anyway. Unless I had like a ton of copies. Just a really nice backup plan more than anything. And the more lands we cut, the more that we're turning the land cycling into the primary ability on those 2 cards instead of the secondary. I think I'd rather have it just be a secondary just in case I'm not drawing enough lands, rather than just relying on constantly cycling them and playing them as basically tap lands, which is what I'd be doing if I cut down the land count a bunch. Yeah, we'll just keep these and have kind of a higher curve and expect to just cast these naturally, hopefully, rather than cycling them away. And I think this would be the look of the blue-black deck, which does look very strong. Big fan of that, but I do want to take a look at that black-red as well, and I think those are the 2 strongest places to be in this sealed pool by far, outside of playing all 3 colors together. But let's do our due diligence here. Let's make sure we check out black-red as well, but I did really like the look of that blue-black deck, and I think that's where I'm likely to end up. And this is just straight up the deck already, right? I don't think this combat trick is very good. Cast Into the Fire, we could main deck 1 copy. There are a lot of 1 toughness creatures, and this gives us main deck removal if our opponent plays their own Palantir or a Horn of Gondor or something, God forbid. Flamesmiths could maybe make it in. I really don't like the 1 toughness on these cards, though. There are quite a few 1/1s in the format. So these, you really have to be getting a lot of value out of their ability, and we're getting a decent amount, but yeah, 9 instant slash sorceries. I really only like these in dedicated, like, blue-red draft decks, where these are like the only non-creature cards, or the only creature cards, specifically, the only non-instant sorcery cards. Gimli's Fury, not a great trick. Swarming of Moria is an okay way to amass. It would be pretty good if we do try to do the black, red, and blue thing. Maybe the idea there would be to go black, red, run the Swarming of Moria as well, and then splash in the Mouth of Sauron's, and that's it out of blue. Seems reasonable to consider that option. But Wizards, I really don't think I want to play the Scarecrow. Play a Rockets and a Swarming, because Rockets gets slightly better when we have Improvised Club as well, because then we can sack the Rockets to the club. draw a card off of it too. Which is cute. Okay, so Mouth of Sauron. I'm going to leave this on the right, and this would be... These are the 4 cards that we swap stuff in the main deck out for if we want to switch to Grixis. So we'll take a look at that. But this is 44 cards, which means this would be a 17-land red-black deck, and that's a whole deck, so see how that looks. I do like the look of this deck as well. I think I still prefer the blue-black deck a little bit. This has some really, really powerful individual cards, arguably some slightly stronger cards individually when you consider Double Grishnak, Book of Mazarbul, Foray of Orcs. But the Double Grishnak, Book of Mazarbul are really, really good when you're super aggressive. And in order to be super aggressive, you want a great amount of 1/2 mana creatures to lead into the book and lead into the Grishnak, and we do not have that here. We have 3 creatures that cost 2 or less mana, unless you want to count Orcish Medicine, which I really wouldn't. So we can't curve out turn 1, turn 2. We're still aggressive from turn 3 onward, but that does significantly weaken the impact of a Grishnak or a Book of Mazarbul, particularly the Book of Mazarbul. But I think that's really where a lot of our red cards look the strongest, is when we're super beating down. Like Firebrand, Fellowship, Smite as cheap removal as well. And this deck just isn't that fast to make those incredible. I think the blue-black is just a little more synergistic overall. Let's check out the Swarming of Moria Wizard's Rockets build here, where we probably cut Orcish Medicine, Mirkwood Bats, just some of our most filler black cards overall. Curve gets a little wacky here, and then we're pretty loaded at higher mana costs. I guess I could put the Lorien Revealed in here as well, since... if I don't hit my splash color, then I just island cycle it, and then I have my splash color. And if I do hit my splash color plus a treasure, I can cast it and draw 3. The fact that it's double blue is an issue. If it were like a Troll of Khazad-dûm, where it's a single black mana and 5, where Lorien Revealed was a single blue mana and 4, that would be pretty incredible, and we would easily run it in here. But the double blue, I feel like I'm just going to play 1 or 2 islands, with Swarming for a treasure and Rockets for fixing as well. So I don't actually know that Lorien Revealed even helps that much. Right, because if I can never hard cast it, I might as well just play the island, instead of an island that costs 1 mana to put in my hand. It is a little bit of a synergy with Mouth of Sauron, because we dump a sorcery into our graveyard and then get our island. So I guess... do consider it. Breaking the Fellowship's one of our weaker removal spells. That's potential cuts. And then I guess with double Mouth of Sauron, we maybe get cutting on the War Beasts or something. Run something weird like this. I feel like just red-black and blue-black looked better than this. Things do get a little awkward, a little dirtily. With the Wizard's Rockets for sure. And the mana swapping about. Yeah. I think that's enough of a cursory glance at Grixis for me to prefer just running that blue-black build. I liked blue-black over red-black, and I still like blue-black over the Grixis Splash version. So I'm going to leave the deck builder, discard changes, open up that deck again, get one last glance at it, make sure that I'm confident that I prefer this build to the red-black or the Grixis deck. And yeah, I'm pretty dang confident on that. I like the looks of this quite a bit, and I'm going to call it a deck here. Alright, here's a final look at the deck list I'll be running today. We're going to be on a blue-black kind of controlling build. Definitely more mid-rangey than anything like a lot of sealed decks are going to be. Don't have much control over what we're doing. So we've got a solid amount of creatures here. Haunt of Dead Marshes, Easterling Vanguard, Uruk-hai Berserker, Nazgul for great ring tempt value. Bats on 4 as a flyer. Then we get to the really big stuff at 5 and 6 mana. We've got a Witch King of Angmar, the biggest bomb in the deck, and a couple Mouth of Sauron, which look quite good in this deck because we've got a really high instant sorcery count versus creature count, because there are quite a few creatures in this deck that are just popping out of instant sorceries rather than just being creature cards themselves. So we might be a Mouth of Sauron deck where we mill ourselves for any of these cards. So Less creatures than your average sealed deck for sure, but that's because we have cards like March from the Blackgate, Deceive the Messenger, Saruman's Trickery, also spitting out creatures, as well as being a little more grindy, a little more controlling than average, with a bunch of counter spells like Glorious Gales, Saruman's Trickery, some good bounce spells like Soothing a Smeagol, some removal like Claim the Precious, and Lash the Balrog, and some big card draw to get ahead in the game later with Arwen's Gift and Lorien Revealed. So it's like a pretty classic, more controlling, more late game, mid-rangey kind of blue-black build here, with some really good bombs between Witch King of Angmar, a couple Mouth of Sauron, and a Palantir of Orthanc, so it definitely has access to some powerful cards. I'm excited to see how it does as we head into the gameplay. Alright, here we are on the play for game 1. Definitely a slow hand. We don't have any proactive plays till turn 4, but we've got good reactive plays with a counterspell and a bounce spell to slow our opponent down. Try to stay alive. Our hand's going to have a really bad time if our opponent just plays a large amass card early. A large non-creature amass card, like a Book of Mazarbul or something, where they get a 3/3 off of it, because I can't bounce that amass token with Soothing a Smeagol. I can't counter that enchantment spell with my counter a creature spell, Glorious Gale, so not in love with that. Not in love with a Mordor Muster start from our opponent either, since they got good value off of it, drawing a card, losing a life. So our Vanguard trade is going to be pretty whatever. Probably just play the controlling role here with all these counter spells and just pass from here rather than immediately trade. There's going to be a blue-black mirror match. We do have the Glorious Gale for the Athelian Kingfisher, so pretty big fan of that. They are going to pass turn. There's the Rings site. I can put a Witch King of Angmar in my hand, but I'm still stuck on 3 mana, so it's a couple turns till I can even play the Witch King, and if they have a Torment of Golem, they'll just make me discard it. Is it better to just hold up Glorious Gale again against blue-black? They're probably casting some kind of non-creature amass spell sometime soon, where I don't get to do anything if I don't just Ring Sight right now. So I'm just going to Ring Sight right now. I guess I could grab a Troll of Khazad-dûm instead of a Witch King, which does feel pretty reasonable here. We're trying to get to 5 mana for the Mouth of Sauron, ideally. If I just grab a Witch King and I don't draw any lands, we're going to be in a really rough spot, but if I can Soothing of Smeagol, whatever they cast, if they do play a creature, make the Vanguard draw and discard to try to hit lands. I feel like I need... it doesn't feel good, but I think I need to just guarantee a swamp with Troll of Khazad-dûm. They're just going to pass turn with 4 mana up. There is a land drawn for us, so I suppose Witch King would have been working out better right now. I think we just also hold mana up here. I'm not going to run out of bats into good counterspell like Saruman's Trickery or something if that's what they're holding the mana for. Because I've got plays I can make without rolling something out during my turn. I can just hold on to the Gale and use it here, which is what I'm going to do. Then I can cycle the Troll to get the land for the Mouth of Sauron guaranteed, and I can drop that down while they're tapped out. That should put us in a pretty great position. Okay, do hit a 6th land, which is awkward, but it's fine. They have only creatures in there, right? They have 1 sorcery? Yeah, I'd still rather know myself. Okay, there goes our Claim the Precious, but overall, 3/4 and a 4/4 for 5 mana is definitely worth milling our Claim the Precious Nazgul. So they're the full Grixis. Double blue, double black, double red. Hopefully they don't have Sauron himself in there. The 6 mana 7/6 that I have to sacrifice a legend to target. And whenever I cast anything, they amass 1. That's the big Grixis mythic rare. Alright, Lash of the Balrog, so they're probably going to amass again. Yep, the Mouth of Sauron themselves. That's so awkward. We do kind of lose the Mouth of Sauron mirror match. I I could bounce my own Malthasaurus with Soothing a Smeagol and just start going for it. But then I don't play a creature this turn, so I take 8 on the crackback. But then I can recast this one again. I guess I should probably just Soothing this Mouth of Sauron if they don't blow it up. It's probably a lot safer because I'm going to take so much damage if I don't play a creature here. So I should just play another Mouth and lose this one. But if I Soothing my own Mouth right now, I get to draw a discard. I guess I get to play Bats, but Bats doesn't block anything at all. I could play Bats and then block and Soothing my own card and wait to draw a discard till next turn. I actually think that's okay. Like, not fantastic, but it's okay. I am threatening a double block kill on their army with Vanguard plus Mouth. There's Bilbo. So, enters the battlefield, ring tempts them. They put the ring onto Bilbo so they can start getting treasures when they hit me with him. Nothing. Do I try to Soothing my own Mouth in response to them trying to pass turn here with all this open mana? What's the worst that happens at instant speed here? They have some kind of instant speed removal I'm not thinking of? I can't think of one that blows up a 3/4. There's a red 1 for 3 damage. I guess they could have the red 1 sack a creature, deal 4 damage. They probably just have a counter spell for when I try to recast the Mouth of Sauron. The counter target creature spell thing. Feels the most likely. Move the Ring Bearer to the Bats since the Vanguard can't get through Bilbo. Find an Arwen's Gift. I think I just want to Mouth of Sauron into Mouth of Sauron. Probably countering my first Mouth of Sauron, though. We'll see. No. I do have to slightly consider milling out, but this is going to be a giant army. It's an 8/8. It's pretty big. 8/8 is quite large. Yeah, mirror matches are going to be awkward for us, because we do a really good job at fueling opponents' Mouth of Saurons. Because they can also just target us. Well, I'm just going to get all the work I can out of this Orc army before I make another with this one, so for now I'm holding up Trickery and Haunt of the Dead Marshes, discard this Swamp. Feels good to me. March from the Black Gate. Not actually that impressive right now. Because my army doesn't need to get any bigger. 8/8 is fine. Making it a 9/9 into 10/10 doesn't really matter. So I'd rather probably hold up the mana for Haunt of the Dead Marshes plus Trickery. They are going to chump with Bilbo. They can move their Ring Bearer around, and now they can draw a card, discard a card off of their Ring Bearer. They are gonna do that. Luckily I can double block and go for the kill here with a Trickery up against a combat trick of theirs, or an instant speed removal spell. If they have 2 different instants here, then they will win this combat. Alright, I'm cool with the 2-for-1 trade. Neither of these creatures are getting through anyway. Just clear out the army. Treason of Isengard. Put a Lash of the Balrog back on top of their deck and get a new army. I guess it's probably just a lot more efficient to counter this instead of waiting and countering the Lash next turn. because they have the mana to just spend 5 on it. They don't have to sack a creature to do it, so I think we counter this rather than counter the Lash. Like, either way, we're going to counter one of those 2 spells. Alright, they scoop them up. That game is in the bag in our favor. We're going to start it off 1-0 as we head into Game 2. Here we are for Game 2. Mono blue hand, but if we find 2 swamps by turn 5, we're going to have a great time. I'm going to keep this hand. It could be an issue, but I am going to Island Cycle Lorien Revealed, and we know we have the mana for Trickery turn 3 at worst. There's a Wizard's Rockets from our opponents. Okay, another black spell is certainly not what we want to draw. Mono red from our opponent, but they've got a Wizard's Rockets on board to help them out. We do find the swamp. I can't just cast a ring sight, though. That would do nothing. The ring would tempt us, but we wouldn't be able to tutor for anything without a creature on board. They are on red-black. Cast absolutely nothing yet. Well, I suppose I cast the bats rather than hold up Trickery right now. I was going to say that guarantees we have, if they don't removal spell us, that guarantees we have a creature on board to ring sight with next turn to grab our Swamp Cycler. Oh, that could happen. We could just draw like that. Just hit the black source by turn 5, nice and easy, super simple. And we're in a ridiculously good spot if they don't have a removal spell that can exile the Witch King of Angmar or give it -3/-3, because otherwise we can just keep giving it indestructible by discarding a card. And they can't really hit us too much, because once they do, they have to sacrifice a creature every time they hit us. They do only have to sacrifice one of the creatures that hit us every time, so if they get a really wide board state and we can't block well, they could hit us with like 4 creatures and sacrifice one of the 4. So that's how they could try to outrace the Witch King. But it kills them in 4 hits, so they gotta be fast. And actually, I just realized Smite the Deathless works against the Witch King, because it makes it lose indestructible. So there's actually a common in red they could have a second copy of. But they did already spend their first copy, so I guess I'm gonna hold up Trickery then. We just play a Nazgul, hold up a Trickery, and hit them 4 turns in a row. That's the game plan. Witch King doesn't need to be my ring bearer in any way, right? Yeah, it doesn't. Just put it on Nazgul. I don't think it matters right now on level 1, but then if they don't play any smaller creatures, I guess I could hit them with Nazgul as well. Oh my god, it's a Wraith? Nazgul puts a counter on every Wraith and the Witch King is a Wraith. I'm gonna let that resolve, because again, if they just don't kill the Witch King, they're gonna die. I'm gonna lash that instead, I think. I guess I have to sack the Nazgul to lash it, so that's maybe a mistake. I could ring sight and the ring tempts me again. I put a counter on both of these, which is pretty impressive. Well, now I kind of just want to take a turn off of holding up Trickery, because I kind of want to just Mouth of Sauron and Lash the Balrog. Or just Lash the Balrog without playing Mouth of Sauron. Okay, they've got a spell. Yeah, I probably need to Mouth of Sauron, Lash the Balrog here. I think it was fine to not counter Oliphant, but the part that I wasn't thinking about is that that means I don't get to hold up Trickery this turn anyway. Because the whole thing is if I Trickery the Oliphant, I don't have the Trickery for if they draw Smite the Deathless. But if I don't Trickery the Oliphant, then I have to spend mana on Lash of the Balrog, which is like sack my Nazgul to hold Trickery up, or cast Mouth of Sauron and Lash, or cast Lash. Any of those plays. I don't have the Trickery mana up anymore, unless I sacked the Nazgul, which is definitely losing something valuable. Okay, I'm gonna let them... Well, I can't stop them from just hitting me. They're both Menace. Alright, they're getting as much damage as they can. That's 11. 12, 13, 14. Not quite gonna do it. They gotta sack both those creatures. Well, they gotta sack one of those creatures, and the ring tempts me. So my Wraiths are bigger again, and they're super dead. We just send in the squad. Alright, well that game brought up some really interesting stuff to keep in mind for the future. The Witch King is a Wraith if we draw into a Nazgul and a Witch King together, which is absolutely absurd. And Smite the Deathless can actually kill a Nazgul, a Witch King of Angmar. So if they cast a Smite the Deathless on my Witch King, do not discard anything. Keep that in mind in the future. And if I'm playing against red, hold up that Trickery. Red and white, I think, are the main colors that could kill the Witch King easily. Because white has the Exile removal spell, red has the Smite the Deathless. So good stuff to know for the future, but overall, really lucky draws there. Kept our Bomb Rare in the opener. Without the mana to cast it, drew into the mana to cast it. Pretty simple stuff. Here we are for game 3. This hand looks pretty excellent to me. We do need to draw another black source for Claim the Precious eventually. I did draw it immediately, which is fantastic. But what I was going to say is I don't think I'm going to Claim the Precious something turn 3 anyway. There's an Easterling Vanguard I can deceive. They will still get their army out of it, but I'll kill anything with Deceive and take that as a super fine deal. Nazgul, can't counter that. That is very good here. If they make the Vanguard the Ring Bearer, then we can't Deceive it. Yep, very smart play from our opponent. I could still stop the damage, make a 1-1, but I can't kill the Vanguard. Is it worth it here? Probably not. I guess I could do it and then I actually make a Ring Bearer off of Claim the Precious. If I want to Claim the Precious Nazgul immediately. Which I kind of do. Claim the Precious Nazgul and then hold up Gale on future turns. Uh-oh. Arena? Hello? Well, this is really not good. Oh, okay. Alright, that was concerning. I might reboot Arena after this game. I am not used to it stuttering like that. That was super weird. Level 2 Ring-Bearing Vanguard. That is very, very good for our opponent. Draw a card, discard a card, set up your draws, especially when they're stuck on one color. Not a big fan of how this game has started. Vanguard into Nazgul into Berserker is a really excellent start. They got Moria Marauder as well. Alright. So they're just like a sweet Rakdos deck. I play Mirkwood Bats. If they don't have removal, they can't send Vanguard in again. But I don't get to hold up my double Gale now that they have the red source. I feel like they probably have removal on average by now. But if I spend the turn holding up double Gale, I take 5, guaranteed. If they only cast like one creature, it's not even that good, because Deceive doesn't kill anything. Just go for it with the bats. Cross my fingers, hope for the best. There's the 5th land. Ugluk, okay, that's fine. Okay, beautiful. We keep them from drawing and discarding a card this turn. Now I get to hold up Saruman's Trickery Glorious Gale. I can even kill Ugluk on blocks. Because I can block it with a 2/3 and a 1/1. That's not cool with me. Let's counter that Smite the Deathless. Amass 1. Book of Mazarbul. I cannot counter that. That's going to be a massive menace attack soon. Probably just a lethal attack if they just wait till then and then attack with everybody. If they do this, I get to whittle down their board without losing a creature, which makes their menace attack much weaker in the future, which is what I shall do. The Uglook gets bigger, but I need them to have a smaller quantity of creatures so I actually find double blocks. It's okay if they stack up like one very big creature. They have one card in their hand. I think I need to draw 3 instead of holding up a Glorious Gale against one card. I don't love it. Certainly don't love those draws. Now we take a hit from the 5/5. Yeah, Book's probably just gonna kill us still. So, I feel like the only thing I really could have done differently here was if I had the Gale up, they wouldn't have the Goblin. Now I'm facing 2 creatures with Book. Double block Uglook, take 2. And now I take 6. Alright, double block Uglook, take 6 it is. That looks like a removal spell in hand. Maybe. Nope. Draw a card, discard a card. They got one more opportunity to find instant speed removal. Well, not dead yet. Okay, now we're super dead. Alright. Probably could have played that out a little bit better. Definitely could not have won, though. Land, counterspell as our last hand. I don't think there's any lines there that put us in a position where we don't end up with like 0 creatures on board against at least 1 creature from our opponent. Chipping in for the final few points of damage. Alright. 2-1 heading into game 4. Alright, on the play, we've got a Deceive for our early interaction, and then I just sit on my butt waiting for a Witch King. Mouth of Sauron. Alright. Probably gonna have to just cycle this troll. I can still wait. I don't think I have like any 4 mana cards in this deck, so I can just cycle it on turn 4. And now I've hit land 5, so I don't have to. Playing against black-white. Black, white, red, they could have Smite the Deathless for the Witch King. They could have Smite the Deathless, or they could have the Exile removal spell out of white. Ooh, discard a Balrog, draw 2. They probably have Sam's Desperate Rescue. To pick up that Balrog later. Got the Saruman's Trickery. If I can resolve the Witch King and then hold up the Trickery, should be pretty sick. I'm going to take the 1 so I can hold up Trickery still. Take 1 extra point of damage. Worm Tongue. I don't think that's annoying enough to counter instead of holding Trickery for Witch King. Alright, well, we go for it. Hope they don't have Smite. Or Banish from Adoris. Those are the common removal spells that'll do it. I guess they could have the Fog, but then we're still in a pretty ridiculous position. I just need to play other creatures to kill them, but making it so anytime they hit us with anything, they have to sack that creature is still pretty good. Well, they have to sack one of the creatures that hit me. Erkenbrand. Hello, Erkenbrand. Don't mind you very much. Pass the turn. 6 mana means I can play the Uruk-hai Berserker and hold up the Saruman's Trickery. Just choose the Berserker. Witch King's already unblockable. On this board state. Alright, 3 more attacks. We'll do it. War Beast of Gorgoroth. That's not going to change the status quo too badly for us. And they're done. They don't care anymore. Fair enough. Witch King is a really stupid magic card. We are now 3-1 heading into game number 5. Alright, here we are on the play for game 5. We get to try out our Palantir for the first time, and it is at its best when you just drop it down turn 3, so that is what we're going to do here. More likely than not. Keeping the Mouth of Sauron might be a little greedy without a blue source, but I'm going for it. Haunt of the Dead Marshes versus Haunt of the Dead Marshes. The stare down. Standoff is here. They've got those Theros Beyond Death full arts, which are pretty cool. They are on black-red. Well. The Haunt of the Dead Marshes have traded. They've dropped an Easterling Vanguard. Here's Orb. I am cool with drawing these, but they're just going to mill me right now. So let's put them on the bottom to save them from getting milled, because I want to draw them later. Although, I guess by the time we hit them, I don't want to draw them. I would still rather shoot them in the face than not, so try to find an on-land card there. Oh wait, no, I should have... Oh, I just realized, because I only get milled 1. That was actually a big punt. Since I only get milled 1... I should have just kept both, because one of them would have still been there. That was dumb of me. Okay, this one will not still be here. And Lash of the Balrog doesn't mill them, or doesn't shoot them that much, so I'll put both on bottom again. Oh my god, they've hit like every island. That punt might cost me the game. Putting both islands to the bottom. I did not realize the math of just they mill one, I draw the other one. But that's 4 islands down, which is horrendous luck right now. And punish us about as punished as we can get. Kill the Fire Leaper while it's only dealing 1 damage here, because if I kill the Vanguard, they get a 1/1 back anyway. Yep. It's like 6 damage. Minimum. Not super good draws, but a 1/1's good enough to block Vanguard and trade. Okay. We are going to be drawing cards now for the rest of the game, I think. Which could get us out of this. No, it can't. Not into Sauron. Alright. Well, I think I punted this one away. If I just kept double island at the start, I think we probably would have won, because then I could have island and had Glorious Gale for the Sauron. Plus, I'd have the mana for Mouth of Sauron, Witch King of Angmar at this point. But now I'm just going to die to Sauron. That's unfortunate. Feels pretty bad. Tormentor Golem, the Witch King for sure. I don't know what's taking them 12 years to choose a 3/3 menace. It doesn't matter which one they choose. They just exile it. I guess haunt so they get to scry one. Lower their creature count, trading the Vanguard off. But we're definitely dead to Sauron unless top deck something crazy, but we know it's Deceive, which doesn't do it. Bat's Deceive is 3 power against Sauron, which doesn't kill Sauron. Double block their other stuff though. If I just play the Mouth of Sauron, I have 2 blockers against 7 menacing power, which does not survive. Play a Bats and I'm pretty sure I still don't survive. Maybe a big Orcish Medicine lifelink later or something. Alright. We can't beat the Fire Breather for buffs. That's so disappointing. I could go to 1 life if I nullify Sauron. No, I can't. Because it dies. Right? They exile it at the end step, but if I double block the Fire Leaper, then it does die. It gets the death trigger. So I could make Sauron a 1/4 menace and then try to double block here, but then I take 4 damage, this dies, I take 3 more. Or I could deceive this, double block there. They pump this twice, I die. I could deceive that, double block here, pump this, die. Okay. That game 100%. If we had Glorious Gale for Sauron, we would have won that game handedly, so that is just an unfortunate part of not having a lot of experience with a mythic rare card. I didn't realize, because it was going to be mill 1 on the first scry, we could have kept double island and drawn into the island the next turn. 100% cost ourselves the game there. Pretty big bummer, but it is what it is. I don't want to beat myself up about it too bad, because it is a mythic rare card. It's not something you're going to see all the time and play with all the time. But this game was winnable for sure. Really unfortunate way to end it. I don't think our opponent had anything without Sauron at that point. They had a lot of lands flooding out a bit there. Yeah, we could have definitely taken it with Orb if we'd countered Sauron. So I don't even know for sure if I would have had Glorious Gale up for the Sauron when they went to cast it, but I probably would have played pretty safely, pretty defensively there. So I would like to think I would have held Gale up, but maybe we still would have lost. Maybe I would have ended up casting like the Mouth of Sauron or something the turn before they were going to try to cast Sauron the Necromancer. But our odds of victory were, I think, still really high overall if we had just kept the island early. So big punt will cost us that game, but on the bright side of things, 3-2 is still a pretty nice record, and it's going to give us quite a bit of gems. And this is not our last chance to get into the qualifier weekend. There is going to be another qualifier play-in, which will be best of 3 coming up next Friday, so I'll be playing in that event as well. Doing one more run, seeing if we get into the qualifier weekend at the last possible moment, but until then, that is as close as we're going to get here. Just a 3-2 run off of a pretty major Palantir of Orthanc punt there. So overall, pretty fantastic deck. Pretty happy with how I built the deck. I think the only thing that really went wrong was in gameplay. Don't think we could have won in our first loss, but we certainly could have turned that second game around and turned that into a victory. Be 4-1 right now, and who knows what the next couple rounds would have been after that, what we would have paired against. Maybe could have made it, but 3-2, solid for now. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the videos. If you're interested in catching me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below, and if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can hit the join button or check out the Patreon in the link in the description below. Other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.